Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, and welcome to our Mindful Over Matters podcast, where we are curating conversations and sharing information surrounding intentional living. I'm your host, Zanita Ellison, licensed mental health counselor, author, certified life coach, and serial entrepreneur. So we have a guest. We have a guest. Guest, tell us your name.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm J.R. McIntyre.
J.R. McIntyre. Yes, let me just read your list of titles. Mr. McIntyre is a business consultant slash entrepreneur, author, certified master motivational speaker, professional, certified master life coach, and U.S. retired Army veteran Bronze Star recipient. Wow, that's a lot of titles, JR.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
Definitely.
a lot of big prestigious titles. Let me ask you, would you say that all of those titles or accolades that you received were kind of birthed out of some significant life change or transition?
Yeah, it was. A lot of them just came about when I pivoted last year, the last few years.
Mm, yes, and that is what we really want to talk about today.
Right.
How you were able to pivot and produce, right?
Right.
And in that found your passion.
Right.
I would say even for myself, like I call myself listing all these so-called titles for me, life coach, LMHC, author, all that stuff. But all of the titles behind my name were also birthed out of my own life transitions. I
Right.
became a mental health counselor because my plans was to go off to Texas after uh, undergrad and go to get a doctorate in social work and all this stuff. And I ended up getting pregnant, coming home, and I just found whatever graduate program I could. So that was a life transition.
Hmm.
Um, a certified life coach. That happened. Good morning, soul rest music. Certified life coach happened after like in 2020. I went through a really traumatic breakup for me. At least I thought it was traumatic. And in that, I birthed a life coach plan called Healing Hearts Healing, and so it was to help people get through relationship pain. So that
Hmm.
was a life transition. Then the author, somebody asked me about co-authoring a book in regards to helping high schoolers transition after high school. And
Hmm.
at that time, my daughter was like a struggling senior. So
Hmm.
I was like, sure, I'll give y'all what I know. And the serial entrepreneur came after that. So basically, a lot of a lot of people may find themselves, birthing all of these great ideas, visions, and paths for themselves after a life lesson or a life loss.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So in the chat, any of you who are there in the chat, I want you to identify any great accomplishments you may have birthed after a loss or a pivot or a transition. Okay. So, um, before we deep dive into conversations, I like to ask all my guests to define intentional living. I say this is a podcast, so we curate conversations surrounding intentional living, right? So, JR, how would you define intentional living? What does that mean for you?
Well, I mean, actually, so before you define it, you got to understand who you are as a person, man, a woman, where you come from, your culture. Very intentional and deliberate, understanding what your God gifts powers are and what you're able to put back into the universe. So being very intentional is um, not selecting that occupation, let that occupation select you. And it comes from um, being raised around it. Like me pivoting to become a life coach and a motivational speaker. My grandfather and my dad is both ministers. So I knew
Wow.
already how to articulate, but I didn't want to follow their coattail. But I also wanted to represent where I came from. So now that I'm a motivational speaker, it's all in that same atmosphere. So that's very intentional. It selected me. I tried to run from it, and no matter what I did in my life, it kept chasing me. So it was very intentional.
Mm. So it sounds like you saying like in order to live intentionally, you have to be self-aware, like know who you are.
Yes,
Yeah.
mind, body, soul. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. How can we live authentically, right? Because I feel like if I'm gonna live intentional, I need to live authentic. How can I do that if I don't know who I authentically am? Yeah,
Right.
that's
Definitely. You have
good.
to. You have to be tapped in with them chakras to be very intentional.
Okay, okay. I don't know a whole lot about chakras. I know a little bit, but not a whole lot about that.
Yeah.
But maybe you could teach me one day.
Definitely.
Um, so tell us a little about you. Who are you?
Well, I was born and raised in Long Beach, California. 1981. I ain't telling my age, but I've been through a lot. Been through a lot.
Sure.
Saw my mother. She passed away when I was very young. She was doing a lot of drugs, and she passed away of AIDS. So that struck me hard and
Mm.
changed my whole mental capacity. I was the youngest, so seeing my mom go through all that, and then seeing a lot of stuff. I was born and raised in Long Beach, so I saw a lot. People see it on TV, but we was right there to witness the '80s and the '90s as African American kids out there and seeing the transition, the situations that was going on at hand, and what was presented to us at the time. So,
Yeah, wow. How old were you when your mom passed?
um, '93, nine, 9 or 10.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Okay, 9 to 10.
yeah.
Wow. What was that like for a 9 or 10-year-old boy to have to deal with that? A life change as big as that, or a loss that big?
Well, my mother, she was in the streets doing what she had to do, and we used to go see her every weekend. My dad never denied us, for us to see my mother in the situations. My mother lived on Skid Row for a long time, so I saw a lot of
Mm.
that situation out there in Los Angeles, California. I saw the drug dealing, I saw the hustling, I saw the gang banging. So it was very hard for me to see my mom pass because I always used to ask why it was my mom the one that had to pass because I
Mm.
see a lot of people grow up with their families and their moms and dads, and I used to always be that one like, why me?
Yeah, yeah. How would you say, JR, like that why me mindset, like how did that follow you throughout your life?
I never ever forgave my mother for that until I had my first conflict in Iraq. So I joined the
Mm.
military in 2002, and I never needed my mom until I felt like I needed her out there, and I cried out for her, but she wasn't there. So
Mm.
yeah,
Wow, that's very interesting. Very
yeah,
interesting. I would say, as a clinician, I get the privilege. I'm gonna call it a privilege. The privilege of having access to the most intimate parts of my clients or of people's lives, and so being able to just kind of walk historically or currently through their most darkest, toughest moments, and witness their life changes and how those changes impacted their life. It always blows me. Um, but we know life is full of changes, right? One thing that's gonna happen is change.
right.
Change is inevitable. Change is sometimes seen, sometimes it's expected, sometimes it's not. But I do believe that transitioning is another process. Transitioning is more of an intentional internal process, right?
Right.
What do you think? Would you say that you feel that change and transitions are the same, or
I believe that change is something that you plan for. A transition happens because it has to be. It's a pivot in the universe. So without me going through them little situations, I call it little because I was a little boy. I would never be who I am right now. Going through
Yeah.
that, experiencing that as a young kid out there, and seeing my mother. I had a strong father, but seeing my mother, every kid I believe needs that love and that compassion. So me transitioning from that, understanding that okay, I transitioned, my mother passed, and seeing that and trying to be a man, but it did take away something from me in my what I'm doing now. So
Yeah. And you said like if it wasn't until you never forgave your mom until you had that experience in Iraq. Um, what when you had this realization, right, during that experience, like what had to change within you? Like what was that process like for you?
I was very traumatic. So that experience that day, I remember vividly. We had got attacked at the police station in Iraq, and we lost a lot of guys. And when I came back to the fob, like everybody was emotional, and
Mhm.
people can at that time you can get on the phone tent and call back to your people. It's like, but I didn't have nobody to call back to. I wanted to call back to my mom, and I couldn't. So
Mm.
I went into my little area and just started crying and talking to her wherever she was at. I was trying to reach out to her, letting her know I needed her at that time. Like all I needed was love, like because I was being consumed by a lot of um, dark stuff out there in Iraq and Afghanistan. So
Yeah. So what you feeling like you need that from mom and being in a very what's the word? I would call it scary. And maybe it wasn't scary for you, but a very scary place. Where did you get that love from? You couldn't get it from mom. What did you tap into?
oh wow, it was scary. I was scared. So I tell people all the time. People actually, was you scared? I was. And if somebody tell you they're not, then they're a robot because it's certain situations that influence you to understand the emotions.
Mm.
But I tapped into gym and prayer. I always tell people all the time, gym and prayer saved my life. And my dad instilled prayer in me at a young age as a little boy. So I maybe didn't know how to pray, but I was
Yeah.
praying. But when I learned as a grown man, I learned that okay, that was nothing but God teaching my father how to teach me how to pray, and it activated me every time I was in a horrible situation.
Mm. So that foundation that you were able to have from your father was able to keep you grounded in some of the most probably scariest or traumatic moments in your life, sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. hmm
Yeah, it's funny because you and I both are parents. You have three kids, right?
I have two biological and one is yes, three kids. So yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you're a father of three, and I'm a mother of two. And sometimes we feel like we just preach into a brick wall. Sometimes we wonder if what we're instilling in them is really like resonating. And it's not till years down the line or when they're really in a situation to where it's like they're able to recall what we were pouring into them and use it when they need it.
Right, definitely. I mean, I vividly remember my father being so hard on me, and I used to dislike him a lot. Why my dad's so tough? But now I know why he was, because my dad right now is my best friend. Like I know
Mm,
why he raised me as a strong black man in that situation, and he didn't take no for answer. And I know why he did the things that he did, because you don't get a manuscript on how to raise kids, so you have to learn on the fly. And he was
yep.
learning in that '80s, '90s era, and that wasn't a good era in Los Angeles, Long Beach, Compton, California, where you got kids out there being influenced by a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about LA. To
Well,
live and die in LA. That was my jam.
yeah,
So what
yeah.
was it like to live in LA, Long Beach, LA?
Well, so I lived in LA off 101st and Avalon between the ages of, I think, I want to believe we jumped around, but I was in that house between one and about 6 or 7. And then we started to migrate to Long Beach. And my dad used to wake up early in the morning, like around
Yeah.
3:34, and drive us to Long Beach so we can go to the Long Beach school districts, because apparently a Long Beach school districts was safer than Los Angeles school districts. So we would sleep on my grandmother's floor in Compton in Long Beach. It's a border. It's Greenleaf, and then it's Long Beach Boulevard. So her house was right next to Compton College, but it was really North Long Beach. But if you
Okay.
blink, it's Compton. So and you have to
Okay.
be careful too, because if you go across certain different areas, you end up in Compton or you end up in the wrong situation. But growing up in Los Angeles, seeing that house out there on 101st and Avalon, and then seeing what was happening, the activities in the alley, because we had an alley, but there was no like a brick wall. There was a string fence, so you could see everything in that alley, who was doing what, and just a kid, your eyes were open. And then going to Long Beach and seeing that, and there was no escape. Long Beach was just as ruthless as Los Angeles and Compton. So growing up in the Long Beach Unified School District, walking to school since I was in the first grade. So
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I only been to California once, and we did visit Long Beach.
yeah,
But I lived through California through rappers, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
Tupac or
yeah,
one of the rappers, or Tupac was the main one, so to hear them rap about Compton and LA and stuff like that, it didn't sound like, it was a place for the weak at heart. Let's say
yeah,
that. Um,
yeah.
but what would you say, like growing up in places like that, what did it give you? Like, what did it give you that you were able to use further down the line in your life?
Well, I'm happy that I grew up there, first of all, because if I did not grow up there, my mental capacity would have been like shook, you know,
Mm,
and then didn't know that my path was going into the military in 2002, and then when I joined, the war kicked right off. So I did 3 deployments to Iraq. So
wow.
understanding that and being there and seeing a lot of friends pass away and being in a lot of conflict, I learned how to accept that by being raised in Long Beach in California. you know
Okay.
yeah, being like, you got to have tough skin growing up out there. A lot of people can't survive out there because even the simplest things, they tell you, they crack jokes on you, and it might be hurting your feelings, but you better not show it unless you're
Mm.
ready to fight. you know
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what made you go to the military? Like, what made you do that?
I didn't want to go. I was being bad, and my father was wanting me to go to the Navy, and I didn't go. I rebelled. So I was a preacher's son. I didn't want to go to the Navy, and I wanted to follow my sister. My sister had recently had left, and my dad was trying to get me back on the right path. I went to county jail, and after the county jail, somehow I ended up in the army. And then the army saved my life.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So I hear some a lot of changes in your life. How about, I mean, if you could count them right,
Yeah.
about how many major life changes would you say you've experienced, JR, in your life?
Oh wow. And what's crazy is because my therapist, when I talk to them about my PTSD experiences, some people always has one, a traumatic experience like a car accident, or for me it was multiple in the military. But life changing experience through my life. I'm about to be 42. I would say on both hands about 9 or 10, like just real huge ones, and even counting the one recent that I went through the last 2 years. So
Okay.
yeah.
Do you want to share any of them? Talk about any of them?
Yeah, we talking about it now. Like me even going to county jail for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was crazy experience. Seeing that culture inside the jail and saying, you know what, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to follow my friends. I don't want to follow family members that been incarcerated, and it ain't for me. My dad
Yeah.
always used to tell me all the tough people are dead or in jail, JR. So get your act together. So um,
Mm,
I finally got my act together, and then went into the military and took that aggression and transferred it to the military, and then fought for my country. So okay, I transitioned from that to that, and then learning how to survive in the military, and then being in the military in this day and age where it's prestigious, and some people. Some cultures don't like for your family members to go into the military, and then some do. But then when they look back at it, they see that the military saved my life, because I would have been dead or in jail or doing something else probably if I never joined the military in California, because I was headed down the wrong path, and I don't know when I would have woke up, but I woke up quick after I joined the army.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mm,
So, okay, so we talked. I always say, I told you that change is one thing, and transitioning is the internal process, right? The
right.
internal evolution. What Take us through the transition of your psyche from, let's just say, from jail to post jail. I guess military. It was jail and military. What went on when you were sitting at them 2 weeks?
I saw a lot. I saw a lot of cultures in LA County, and I guess if you talk or if you research the LA County jail, it's the most I want to say prolific jail like around, because once you go to that system, it's a lot of dynamics, and you in there with a bunch of gangbangers. So, and then they separate you by the Crip modules, the Bloods, and this area and that area. And then when you get in there, you might see people that you had situations with that you might have to, you got to defend yourself. Then
Mm-hmm.
there are politics on which phone you use. So I didn't know that. So it was certain phones that you can and cannot use that was for different races. Then it was, when I went there, I never, like, I see wrestlers on the TV, but when I went to jail, I saw some of the biggest CEOs in my life there. Like they look like they was on WWE wrestling. Triple H, like,
Wow.
yeah, don't look at me, look down at the line, walk. I'm like, where they get these guys from? And I wasn't a fully, um, you know, adapted male at the time. Right now I'm 215, but back then I was like 150, 160. So I'm like, man, these guys is huge. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, wow, I'm gonna do what I got to do to get out of here. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what that I gotta do what I gotta do. Like what was that I gotta do? How did you pivot? Because some people, they may have the desire to not do what it took to get them there, but it's a block. It's a block.
Mhm.
How were you able to work through growing up in Long Beach, being around gangs, being around, what I'm saying, going through the life you went through and not go back? Like what block did you break down?
I just asked God to use me and wherever He wanted me to go. And when I got out, the towers had fell in, I think, 9/11, 2001, and I always thought there was a deeper purpose for me.
Hmm.
And after I got out, I took the test, and then 2 weeks later, I was gone. But that transition happened for me because I didn't want to be there in Long Beach no more. I didn't want to just be, oh, you got out of high school and you stayed here like everybody else, or you still doing the same thing, and nobody's proud of you.
Yeah.
I wanted my family to be proud of me.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your calling?
Um, my gift is motivational speaking and speaking to the youth and mentoring people and just telling my story and being organic as possible. And then my passion is I love security. I love making people feel safe, if it's through my speech or my presence.
Okay. Okay. Nice. And how did you find out? Like, where did you find, or what happened? What gave you this clarity? Like, what? I'm a motivational speaker. I got this passion to
Right.
speak into the lives of other people.
Well, that happened when I went bankrupt. I went bankrupt almost 2 years ago, and I had the largest security company in Tampa, Florida, and I was doing really well, but I had the wrong people around me, and I wanted to show the world that a veteran with PTSD can be able to run a business and be substantial. Now, at the time, I only was working with my associates and about to get ready to graduate my bachelor's in sports medicine. And when I failed in business, I wanted to go understand that, you know what, I need to understand the language of business. That's why I went back to get my master's. But when I went bankrupt, God told me that, hey, JR, you went a long way, but you went the wrong way. And I've been trying to tell you to stop.
Hmm.
So you using
Wait,
all
wait.
this.
Say that again. Say that again. Say it real slow for me.
Yeah, I went a long way, but I went the wrong way. Like I'm
Hmm.
proud of you, JR. You went a long way. You broke barriers, but you went the wrong way. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I had
How? Mm-hmm.
go,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, mm-mm, go
Yeah.
ahead.
And I
I
had to
love it.
understand that. And I understood that in March 13th last year when I was writing my suicide note to my kids. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I was ready to take my own life because of I felt like I failed again. Now this was
Yeah.
not the first I failed again as a grown man in my 40s, failing and being ridiculed and humiliated and called not trustworthy. Because when you start a business and it fails, it falls on you. But if you win, everybody wins. So how
Hmm.
ironic. So I took that, and I think God was the only reason I stood tall because if He would have put that on somebody else, they would have took their life. Because I've been through a
Hmm.
lot with PTSD in the military. I've been through a lot with past trauma with my family. So
Yeah.
it was that connecting to that. So God told me, He took that away, took my business, went bankrupt, all my employees, took my Range Rover, and I had a few eviction notices on my home. And God was like, "Okay, now you ready to listen?" So at my lowest
Mm.
moment, He got my attention. So if you notice in the Bible, a lot of a lot of the parables in the Bible, at their lowest moment, that's when they ready to listen. Like, okay, God,
Yeah.
remember Noah, remember Jonah in the well. Okay, God, I'm
Yep.
ready. Yeah. So it's like,
After
okay,
enough running,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And I ran
Yep.
too long because I know right from wrong, and I thought I was doing right, and my family was proud of me. But there was times running my business where I wasn't happy, but I faked it because I thought that was an entrepreneur. Because we paint that picture as entrepreneur is the glamorous. We never talk about the dark days and oh yeah, no
Listen.
sleep 24/7. People, how many people really do that? I was doing that, and I wasn't even taking a paycheck. So I never paid myself as a CEO to run my company. I would go do certain jobs, but I read that in a book that Warren Buffett said, 4 years, you sacrifice your paycheck, you'll be wealthy. I was going on my fifth year and I went bankrupt. And God was like, now you ready to listen? Go follow this. So I started to
Oh,
read. I read about 100 books, and I would go apply for certain jobs, and nobody wouldn't hire me until the world's biggest gym hired me to be a janitor. And I was like, God, you really want me to be a janitor? And God was like, go there and 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 sit. So with a diamond and a ruby, you have to go through certain stages of pressure, heat, and all that stuff to become a diamond. So I made fun out of it. Every day I would go there and wear my best shoes and scrub toilets and read books. And I read
wow.
about 120 books scrubbing toilets. And then God was like, "You ready? All right, now I'm gonna move you to the front." So they moved me to the front. But through that transition, I was able to understand who I am and block out all the noise.
Yes. Wow. 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 You said so many things that I gotta go back. I gotta go back.
Yeah,
So you said God said you ran long. Wait, because I'm not gonna do it any
yeah,
justice. Say it
yeah.
again.
I went. I went the right way, but I went the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Good job, JR. You went a long way, but you went the wrong way.
You went a long way, but you went the wrong way.
Yeah,
My God, that is like
yeah,
that is a word right there. I could preach a sermon on that one.
yeah,
Because
definitely.
how many times, well, tell me, how does one go a long way but the wrong way? Like how do we get there?
Chasing everybody else's dreams and hopes. I was actually reliving this lifestyle for everybody else. I was
Mm,
in my company. I touched so many people, and if people tell you I didn't, then they're lying because I fed so many people during COVID. People didn't have jobs, but my company was able to create jobs and give them
mm,
jobs and actually put name like I created so many other security and bodyguards underneath my
yeah,
platform that didn't
yeah,
have the training. But God wanted
yeah.
me to do that. Like I was the one. I sent 26 veterans to Kaiser. I'm an alumni of Kaiser. So every disabled veteran that would come into Florida, they would attach them to me. I would get them to school, get their benefits, go get their disability, and then work for me. So I was creating a trifecta. And then I went as far as letting some of them veterans stay in my house. About 26 veterans stayed in my house from 2017 to 2021, 22.
Wow.
Mm,
How do you what does it feel like, right? And sometimes it's that moment between you and God to where it's like, Lord, because I'm a spiritual person. I'm a believer. And it's like, Lord, like, I'm doing all these great things. I'm helping this person. I'm helping that person. I'm sacrificing here. But yet I still failed. It still failed. It
yeah.
still didn't happen the way I thought it would. What's that like? Because I am there, been there. And it's like, dang, God.
Uh, well, and I got another mantra. So I'm writing a book right now, as you know, Z, and my book will be out probably November, December. Um, I would tell you the title, but I don't want nobody to steal it. But I'm very a God fearing man, so I don't believe nobody will steal it. So it's the dark days of entrepreneurship as a combat veteran. But one of my chapters that's caveat to my next book is a good heart don't pay bills. So you can't
Mm.
give into people and pour and expect for them to give it back to you. And we are such good people. Well, my dad raised me to be a good person. So it makes me happy to give. So when I pour, my glass is empty. And when my glass break, nobody helped me to put the pieces back together. So, but what's crazy is even after going through all that and me being on this podcast, I still find myself able to give because that's still in my heart. But now it's selective. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
selective.
To me that goes to like what I've heard this saying all the time when I was raising my daughter, don't break the spirit of the child, break the will. You don't want to break the spirit, you break the will. What that means, well, our spirit is who we were naturally born to be, our God-given self, like that thing in us, right? um the will is the things that we want to do that sometimes is contradictory or counterintuitive to what our spirit is calling us to do.
Right.
And so you naturally, JR, are a giver. You naturally pour into people. You naturally are an intercessor. However, you stepped in, sounds like maybe you stepped into your own will and did it the way you thought it should be done.
Right.
And it's so easy to do. And I would tell you, listen, I've been in business full time for 6 years, right? 6 years. And I thought marriage was hard. I thought marriage was like the hardest thing I ever done. I'm divorced now. Now that I'm an entrepreneur, to me, entrepreneurship is the hardest thing I've ever done. It is hard because it requires things in me that need to change. It requires a character development that I never imagined I needed to go through, or I
Hmm.
never imagined I needed to have. And so, entrepreneurs, we have to be that much more careful with who we are as people, the decisions we make, the people we have around us, um, because it could be do or die. It could be
Yeah.
do or die for us.
It is.
So we are at a midpoint, and at this point, we feature our artist of the day. So we're going to pause for a second, and we're going to jump right back into this awesome conversation.
All right.
Yes, indeed. Hey, this has been some mind blowing revelation stuff. I love it. I love it. Right now, I'm gonna introduce you to our girl B. Sharice, and this song is called "Long Gone." Check it out.
That I like that. I like
Yes,
that. Be
indeed.
Yeah.
Cherie, right?
B. Sharice representing B. More in the building. And if you are an independent artist or even a spoken word poet or up and coming comedian that would like some exposure, you can go to blastmusic247.com and register as an artist for free. That's blastmusic247.com, changing the industry one artist at a time. All right, guys, back to you.
Yeah, I can appreciate that song. That song talked about being at your lowest, the prodigal child, when you run from where you're supposed to be, and what's it like to be at that low point of surrender. And I think, JR, you mentioned being at that point to where you felt like you were ready to take your life, that being here was no longer an option for you. And you said you wrote a suicide note to your kids. Take us back to that moment.
Well, like when people say, when they talk about suicide, it's like, oh, you selfish, and no, I don't think you're selfish. You're very in tune with who you are, but you're
Hmm.
very trying to, again, you have that big heart. You want everybody to understand why you did what you did, and it wasn't like some sad moment. It was some real stuff that affected you, and you want people to understand it at your darkest hour. And this is me. And
Hmm.
I wanted my
Hmm.
kids, first of all, to understand that daddy did all this for you.
Hmm.
Like regardless of what situation I'm in right now, every time
Yeah.
I felt defeat, I wanted to rise because of them, Jaden and Jaylani and Gigi. Make sure that, hey, you know what? When they talk about your daddy, you know that, hey, your dad was a great man. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. How did you come out of that, JR? Like, what snatched you out of that? And before you tell me, I want to piggyback on what you said. Yes, people always say, suicide is a selfish act. And okay, I guess I could see that because you think that that person is only thinking about the pain of themselves. Well, really, it is. If a person gets to a point to where they're ready to take their own life, that means the pain they're experiencing is so great that they feel like not being here is better than being here, or they find no answer to the pain they're living in. And who can wake up to that day after day?
right.
And so the hardest thing for me as a clinician is getting family members, or loved ones who were left behind after a person had death by suicide, to understand that this isn't even about you. And I know you're in pain, and I know you see it from one way, but obviously that loved one was in a deeper place of pain.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So you didn't go through with the suicide, obviously, thank God. Um, Therapy. Tell us about therapy. I heard you say therapy, and of course I'm an advocate for therapy, but I love when black men go to therapy. It is so important. Why is it important for black men to go to therapy?
First of all, I think it's important for everybody, but men and black men in all aspects, because I did military, and I didn't work in no office. We was out in the field. So I learned at that time being tough was speaking up. And everybody,
Mm,
even in the army, I led a lot of people. A lot of people depended on me. So when I started to speak up and say, "Hey, something is wrong," we did
mm,
three combat tours in Afghanistan. I did one, I mean, in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. 55 months. Something is wrong. Seeing all that, going through all that. I'm not going to dig into them topics because that's another show. But it's a lot of things that would terrify a grown man at night. That you
mhm,
had to relive. And once I raised my hand, because I got retired, disabled, retired veteran. And once I started going through that, I started to understand that, something was wrong and I need to
yeah,
go get help. And
yeah,
then I checked myself into the 12th ward of the mental hospital. So they put me in a crazy house for about 21 days. And then I went through all that medicine. And then I got out. 3 months later, they put me in inpatient for 77 days. And that's when it changed for me, learning how
mm,
to understand myself as a man, what I'd done, try to accept it, and try to live through that survivor's guilt and everything we've been through in
yeah,
Iraq and Afghanistan as a kid. I was a
mm,
kid out there. So I wasn't no grown man. I was 20 to 35 doing all these things out there in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, you know,
yeah,
learned a lot, saw a lot, done a lot, lost a lot of friends, lost a lot of good friends, and the memories will always be there. But I needed to start talking to somebody. So, because I wasn't married, and I felt that even in relationships, I wasn't being understood. Not because I was crazy, because I would shut down. Because not only
yeah,
of the military, my upbringing.
yeah, yeah. Wow. I would say, well, let me thank you for your service, and the sacrifice that you put in to serve our country. We as civilians, we don't know the half. When I started working for the VA, because I was working for the VA for 12 and a half years, that's when I got a deep understanding of military life and appreciation of military life, but also a realization that not every soldier comes out as strong, strapping soldier that we may see on an army recruitment poster, but these are everyday people who decided the military was the best, is the best way for me to go, and some of them were able to flourish and do well, and some of them they didn't. Some of them, the military, they felt like maybe made them worse depending on their experience, but working with veterans, it gave me an understanding of just the complexities that come when you go into the military. And post military is a whole different world.
Right.
A lot of them say, I don't recognize the world I'm living in after the military.
Hmm.
I feel like an alien. And
Yeah.
so helping veterans reacclimate to a new version of them and a new version of the world they're supposed to wake up and live in and thrive in, it was tough for a lot of them. It
Yeah. It was
was
hard.
tough.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I got this fond appreciation for anybody that takes that call to say, "Hey, yo, sign me up." Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for
Right.
sure.
I mean, you went through all that. I went through all that, but I still say the army, saved my life. So I would, if I was to relive my life, I would still go through it, because again, on the other side of it, it makes me who I am. And I think that as black men, and black veterans and combat veterans and people who've been through some things, you have to show the other side of the coin. You have to say, yeah, I did some cool things in the military and I kicked a lot of butt, but I got my butt kicked and something is wrong. So talk about it. Even when in the society is so crazy right now, and social media is it's driven by, oh, who got this or who got what. But when you start to really dig deep and talk about your experiences, a lot of them don't want to hear about that. They don't,
Mm,
because it doesn't glorify the Bentley or the mansion or the money and everything like that. But I always wanted to tell that other side because I was never afraid. I can take
yeah,
what you can give, what you gonna give me. So I'm gonna show you how it looks, and it don't look like it should come from somebody like me. So if you never knew me, you would never know that. Hey, I've been through a lot of these things, and I also fought for my country, and also, I'm an entrepreneur, and also I'm in school for my doctorate because I want to paint a picture of taking away that stereotype. You can't
yeah.
pinpoint mental health. You
That's
don't know what
good.
I'm going through. You know.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Right. Because, I always say, how do you allow your pain to produce purpose? And your purpose sometimes can produce profit.
Right.
And it sounds like, that's the path you're on. So let's talk about transitions, right? Transitioning. So I teach a course on how to navigate life transitions using emotional intelligence. And I studied, he was a business consultant by the name of William Bridges. And he talks about there being three phases of transition. There's the ending, there's the neutral zone, and then there's the new beginnings. So the ending is what we call the ending, losing, and letting go. In this phase, we are able to identify what is changing, what have we lost, what are we losing, or what do we need to let go of.
Right.
And of course, in this phase, there are all sorts of emotions, all sorts of questions, all sorts of just internal stuff going on, right? And then we have the neutral zone. The neutral zone is where we're walking out of what we just came out of, right? This is where we pivot from one place to the next. So whether it's leaving a marriage, whether it's going into a new job, coming out of the military, whatever. But this is the bridge between what's old and what's new. And in the neutral zone, this is a time to where we get to reflect on our experiences. This is a time where we get to reflect on where we're going, what is we want to see, who am I now, or who do I want to be. So
Right.
this is like this is a very what I want to call a very sensitive phase of our transition process because this is where we start to be intentional
Right.
in order to have the next phase of our life look the way we would like it to, or at least get close to it.
Right.
And then we have the new beginnings. Um, the new beginning phase is the last phase of transitioning. This is where we have welcomed in our new experience, whether it was something we saw it to be, or it ended up being the way it just ended up being. But this is where we have created our new identity around our new experience. Um, we have created intentional changes or intentional processes to help us sit in where we are. We're no longer resisting the change. We're no longer wrestling with the change, but we have now opened up to our new experience. So, with the ending, the neutral, and the new beginnings, where would you say you are now, JR, in your life transitions?
I'm in my new beginnings. I can feel it. This year was the year of redemption, and I really am on my soapbox of "I told you so," or "You shouldn't have," or "You should have waited to listen to see the that flower grow." So I'm in my phase of redemption, and showing the world who I am and what I can be, and also thanking the world for letting me go through that, and creating what you have here. Me wanting to go get my doctorate in business and understand it at the highest level and teach it to our culture, teach it to our people, teach it to young
Mm,
men, teach it to kids. Let them know that hey, there's no success without failing. And if you fail
mm.
hard, fail fast, fail quick, and don't be scared of failing. And if you fail, I'm here to help you, and I'm gonna let you know what it looks like. We're gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna put you right back in the fight.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Soul Rest Music says, thank you for your service, bro. Question. Along with the military's introduction process, did you experience any racism that further complicated your service?
Uh, yes. So that's a touchy subject. That's why I said I touch on it a lot, probably. And if you invite me back, but yeah, there's a lot of racism in the military, especially for African American males that are combat arms.
Mm.
We're not um, the poster childs of that industry. But when you learn it and you excel and you understand, they try to tear you down. And then some of your leaders that are in front of you don't want you to pass them up, so they hold you down. So I've been through a whole lot, and then I experienced racism from other cultures and from our own people. Like, if
Mm.
you know that other African American males that was in the military, that they see potential and talent, and they're the gatekeepers of certain things. They won't let you in if you don't confide to what they got going on. So
Wow, yeah, that is a whole nother
yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah,
Because yeah, racism and sexism is real in the military.
yep,
I've heard it. I heard it a lot. Didn't see
yep,
it, but I heard it.
yep,
But you were able to push through,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and still do what you were called to do in that season of your life.
Well, yeah, I'm a
Despite.
fighter. I was raised by a strong black man. My dad, shout out to Bishop McIntyre. Like, um, there's no no answer. Like, he put that in me, that work ethic. And I always say you can't go buy ambition in Walmart. He showed me that. So you can't go to Al
Or
Nine,
Target.
Target. You can't go nowhere, Publix. You can't go nowhere and buy it. Either you born with it or you follow the person who has it. And
Mm.
people are teaching people how to go get ambition. You cannot go get it. You have to have that already inside of you, instilled. And if you don't, hang around the persons that have it so y'all can push each other. Because if you born with it, it's like a life raft. It's not going to let you
Ooh.
go. It kind of drives you crazy because it's like, I wish I never had it, but I wish I never lose it. You know?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So you say ambition is you're born with it. You can't get it. However, if you can't get it, connect yourself with an ambitious person.
yeah. Hang around the people who really got it. And, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
they're gonna show you that, because in every crowd there's leaders, followers, and so on and so on. But in that whole spectrum of sheep, wolf, shepherd, we was always taught to be sheep. And we was in school and elementary and middle school, and follow, 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 raise your hand. And then you got some people that step outside the box and they want to go play wolf. And then you have your wolf.
Mm.
So you have your wolf that scares the sheep, and that's fine, because that's the whole dynamic of it. But I'm no longer the wolf. I'm no longer the alpha wolf. I'm a shepherd, and that shepherd has a staff, and I keep my sheep in order, and I be able to transition myself from being that leader. I'm no longer a leader. I'm a shepherd. So now I can speak about it and show these kids that, hey, I was all three parts of this dynamic. Now I'm a shepherd, and it's a reason why that shepherd carries a staff. God, is to push people away and to keep guiding people. So you lean on that staff and you keep going. So when you go through some things, you lean on that staff. But when that wolf come, you put that staff up and you can point it at that wolf. So
I like that. Sheep, wolf, and shepherd. And you were
yeah,
able to kind of maneuver or pivot through all three. All three. I don't know if I've ever
yeah,
been a wolf. Sheep for sure. I think I'm
yeah,
headed towards shepherd, but I don't know if I've ever been a wolf. I might. Depend on what
yeah,
area of my life you talk about. I
yeah.
won't go
Hey,
there.
but don't get it
Oh,
wrong though. Sheeps are dangerous though when they are together. They'll ram you. They hit you. They do all that. Yeah. So
true,
yeah,
true, true. Well, soul music says season of I told you so. I can
right,
dig it. You are in the season of I told you so.
right,
Humbly speaking.
definitely.
Um, and so rest music is also a preacher's kid.
Okay.
So
Thank
yes,
you.
very
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. We have a
Um,
lot of responsibility.
too much is given, much is required.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. There's something about being a preacher's kid, and I realize a therapist kid.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
our kids be off the chain. I don't know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it is. They
Yeah.
don't listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, a preacher's kid and a therapist kid. Um, okay, so we're getting ready to wrap it up.
Okay.
Any regrets, Jr. Any regrets?
Actually, now, I mean, I used to, when I was in my funk and going through my depression with my entrepreneurship, there was a lot of regrets. I hated a lot of things, but now I don't, because I see where God was leading me, and my,
Mm-hmm.
my arms are open. And every day I ask God to enlarge my territory. And that's about it. That's one of my major prayers. And,
Mm-hmm.
me and you, we send prayers back and forth to each other. So every
Mm-hmm.
day, that's the prayer my dad told me to say. And I've been saying it for 2 years, and now I'm here. In the last 6 months, God has made a huge transition in my life, and I'm allowing that to now. And so you have to be able, if people talk about religion or, prayer and all, but you got to allow it to happen. And
Yeah.
there's no way on saying, hey, God, wait, go this way. No, let God take control of your life and do what you got to do. It's okay. It's going to happen. And when you resubmerge from that, then you're victorious and you can tell people about your story and continue to move forward.
Yep, absolutely. Tell
Hmm.
you the prayer Jabez is a very powerful prayer, but with enlargement of territory comes other things.
Yeah.
Biggie may have put it in the words of more money, more problems.
Yeah.
However you want to consider, with an increase of responsibility and it comes an increase of accountability, comes an increase of attention, whether it's welcomed or unwelcome. And so there is a character that has to be developed, for us to get to that place of increase.
Right.
Because what happens when you don't have the character to handle the weight of the attention or the weight of the success that you're given, you will fold. You will
Hmm.
fold under the weight. Yep. And so, my season has been slow and steady, but I'll take it because there's a character development that is happening, so that way when I get to where I'm supposed to be, I can manage it and I can
Definitely.
keep it. Yeah,
Character
for
is
sure.
huge. Character is huge. I tell these kids all the time, like, you can have as much talent as possible, but character is going to keep you in that room. Talent's going to get you there, but if you don't have the character, it'll kick you out that room, and you'll be praying to God what happened, and God was trying to tell you, hey, go enlarge your character, get better, be around the people, get morals, understand who you are.
That's right. That's right. That's why I teach emotional intelligence. Intellect will get you in the room. Intellect will show up and get you the job you want or the education you want. But in order to manage it and keep the relationships around you, you have to have a little bit more than intellect. You have to have emotional intelligence, and that includes the self awareness and the self management, being able to manage yourself. Right.
Right, definitely.
Yep. So,
Mm,
in closing, listen, if you find yourself experiencing a major or minor life change that you just feel stuck in, remember that every circumstance or every place of change requires an internal process of transition. We can't experience life changes without our minds, our souls, our spirits transitioning in order to manage those life changes. Your mind has to process the change effectively, or you will find yourself in an extreme place of discomfort or distress. But there is hope. Connect with someone, like JR said, connect with someone who can kind of help set you on that path, who can inspire you, who can help model ambition, or reach out to a professional who can help you unpack where you are, find some of those irrational belief systems or those old baggages and those old experiences that you may be holding on to that could be preventing you from moving forward or thriving through your life changes. um, you can always reach out to me and we can talk about what that will look like. Let me put my information out there. I am Zanita Ellison. I can be reached at 727-492-5115 or email us at zellison, ZELLISON, at New Vision, NEWVISION, behavioral, BEHAVIORAL, health.com. That is a lot, yo. I need to change my email address. Um, but website coming soon. So listen, we all get in a place to where we have to change, we have to pivot, but don't get stuck. And if you do, connect with somebody who can help pull you out. JR, I'm so glad you answered the call,
yes,
literally and
yeah,
figuratively.
yeah,
And you agreed to join me on my
yeah,
week 2 podcast.
yes.
An awesome guest.
I'm honored. Thank you. I thank you for even selecting me because you have a lot of outlets. So I appreciate you just thinking about, okay, let me get JR on here. So I appreciate you. You know,
Yeah, I mean, you
yeah,
told me your story and I was blown, and I think it's important for other people to know your story, but not just know your story, but also know like what your manual script looked like in order for you to get to where you are now. And so thank you for sharing and giving us
definitely,
that inside scoop. We look
yeah,
forward to your book. Make sure you let me
definitely,
know when the book comes out. Tell
yes.
people how they can reach you if they would like to connect with you.
They can reach me on LinkedIn, JR McIntyre. That's a professional setting, and then Instagram, Dr. JR McIntyre, 80s babies. You can find me on there, and my book will be coming out. So Z, I will be giving you a signed copy, and then I will give you the link so they can go on Amazon. And then I have a few TED Talks coming up too. So I have a TED Talk coming up at the end of this year. So
Really?
yeah, so you'll
I'm
see me on there
jealous.
representing for you and everybody else, and the culture, and just understanding that God don't make no mistakes. So just stick with the program.
Yep. My mom always say, when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart.
That's it.
God's heart for us.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it. Yeah.
All right. So listen, thank you. Thanks to everyone who tuned in to Mindful Over Matters. I don't know what we talk about next week. Next week, we're going to talk about something, and we're going to have another awesome guest. So stay tuned. Tune in 10 a.m. On YouTube. You can always rewatch this show if you miss it. If you miss parts, or you just want to rehear this awesome story, you can always find us again on YouTube on Blast Entertainment. I think it's Blast Music. Well, no, don't get me wrong. Anyways, all right, JR, have an awesome weekend.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Well, good day, everyone. Bye-bye.